Good morning, everybody. Last time I spoke to you about Spells Singer Bard, a character class that was just smashing through Reaper on a first life as a half-orc. Well, I've taken that character up to level 20, and I can now conclusively say that while it does feel a lot better, it still runs into the regular struggles of what some spellcasters can run into, which is specifically Sharn during the leveling process, as Sharn does have monsters with higher than average saves and a lot more health, and it also struggles dealing a large amount of damage in a single target fashion to monsters. So what exactly does that mean? Does that mean that this character isn't very good? And the answer to this question is no. This character is actually really good. It's powerful, it's strong, it's fast, it's got good area of effect damage, strong crowd control, it's able to lock things down, and especially if you play in any type of group, your character is going to be one of the most important members of the party. However, the two places that I mentioned that it starts to fall short, you will begin to notice, especially on my half-orc, who had a little bit of a low charisma, which is not something I would normally recommend. Due to most monsters landing their saving throws against my attacks, it made it quite difficult to actually peel through some packs of monsters, especially sometimes when dealing with constructs with upwards of 4,000 hit points and taking half damage from my spells. It took quite a long time to chop through. Fortunately, I did have allies to assist me, and bards actually excel when they're playing with others, since their spells and their buffs increase the power of their allies by a dramatic amount. It's always better to play in a group. But even so, that being said, if I had been playing as a charisma-based race, like a drow or a dragonborn, or even better, something that actually specializes in evocation DCs, like a dragonborn or a tiefling, the amount of success I would have had on this character would have been a lot higher, and it would have felt better just during the leveling process. Also, if I had taken any amount of time to actually slow down and get some proper gear, as opposed to just going quest to quest to quest. Which is to say, with a little bit of preparation, and maybe some better build choices, this character is going to give you a very easy solo through Reaper mode all the way through the heroic difficulty. Again, the areas where it's going to slow down, specifically against bosses or against monsters that have large amounts of health, yeah, you might run into some problems, but for the most part, I never really ran out of spell points without having access to a shrine. It just meant I actually needed to use every single shrine in every single quest. Now, this might make you ask the question, well, if this character started to struggle a little bit, how does this character fare in Epic? Will it be good? Should you play as a Spellsinger now that Spellsinger has been buffed? That answer is going to depend on what your end goal is. Overall, I think that this character is going to have no real difficulty leveling through Epic. All of its spells being area of effect means you can jump yourself into Draconic Incarnation, combined with Energy Burst and Dragon Breath, Shout, Greater Shout, and all of your other abilities. You'll pretty much be able to smash your way through Epic difficulty and level from 20 to 30 without too much problem. Fatesinger is definitely an interesting idea, and if you can weave in some of the attacks for the Sonic vulnerability, maybe it's worth it, but honestly, I don't quite think so. I think the critical multiplier from Draconic Incarnation is probably better, or possibly the increase to all DCs from Magister, since that's very, very helpful to combine with Enchantment and Necromancy on this character. But the real question I know a lot of you are asking is this character going to be viable in the endgame? And the answer to the question is yes, conditionally. This character can absolutely scream through quests between Reaper 3 and 5 solo without too much of a problem. Mass Hold, Greater Shout, Wail of the Banshee, even its Fascinate abilities to lock down constructs, this character is very, very strong in terms of its individual forms of crowd control and area of effect damage. Even Reapers can't really stand up against the area of effect or the crowd control, since they can get stunned by Greater Shout, as well as Mass Hold Monster, or even Color Spray if you decide to invest. Really, the only time this character actually struggles in any capacity is against quests that deal with lots of constructs, as they take half damage from all your spells. Anything with even undead, outsiders, elementals, and any regular human or animal just gets absolutely destroyed. Without spell penetration, you might think that your character is doomed, since they wouldn't be able to land their mass holds or land their sound bursts. However, Greater Shout does not deal with spell resistance and does stun, meaning demons still get absolutely destroyed by this character. Again, the main issue is the single target damage. It's very difficult to deal a lot of damage with this character, as you have spells that are going to be hitting in that type of difficulty from 2,000 to 4,000 damage per spell, which is not too bad when you're trying to kill a pack of monsters that happens to have around 8,000 to 10,000 health. 4 spells later, you're moving on to the next pack, and everybody's feeling good. But when the final boss is 150,000 to 300,000 health, it's going to take you quite a long time. As far as endgame rating goes, this character is going to be incredibly supportive, being able to crowd control really, really well, and kind of de facto turning into a crowd control and instant kill character using Auto Sphere of Dancing and Wail of the Banshee for the most part instead of its actual damage spells. However, in a raid scenario, regenerating people's spell points, reducing the cost of people's spell points, and just generally buffing buffing people, that's all really good. It is very easy for this type of character to be a main staple in any type of raid group or just group quest in general, and I think you'll have a lot of fun with it. Spellsinger Bard has a lot to offer, and while the buffs didn't turn Spellsinger Bard into the absolute top tier DPS character or spellcaster, making it likely the lowest DPS spellcaster in the game, although I'm going to be testing Artificer next, so we'll see how that goes. That doesn't mean that it doesn't have a place. It means actually instead that it has to focus on its other things, like the fact that Bards, being a buffing character, needs to be able to support its allies on top of just dealing damage. You know, you gotta sweeten the deal. Not just kill the monsters, but you gotta make sure everyone's feeling really good about it too. Buff them up, get their stats, and help them charge into battle. Now, if you've heard everything I've said about Bard and you're like, man, I'm really interested, I want to try this, I want to try the solo Bard thing, I want to get to level cap, I want to do some raiding, I want to do all this other stuff, let me explain to you how to make a half-orc Bard, and also what you should do if you don't want to play a half-orc, but instead would rather play a better race. So if you'd like to play the inverse Warrior Skald, a screamer of shouts and not a smasher of skulls, then guess what? Spellsinger Bard is right for you, and I want to give you a solid build that can make it so your character can be successful all the way through the end game. Ignore the half-orc parts because, as I said in the last video, not designed to be a half-orc, but realistically this character is going to be successful and it's a first life all the way through, even if you're playing as a half-orc, although there are some slowdowns. Again, Bard's more of a group character, unless you do any multi-classing, so that's going to be true here. Now my character, in fact, me sing songs, Bard, went with the maxed out charisma in the con. Don't really think there's anything I would change about that since the last video. I think that the maxing out your charisma is obviously important. Getting a little bit more, pulling it together any way you can is essential. It's also important to note that while these stats like Fortitude, Reflex, and Will Save don't seem like they're the absolute best, they're actually not as bad as you might think. This character gets so many extra bonuses to its saves from casting its Inspire, as well as Greater Heroism, and also the just the aura that I'm standing around. This character grants an extra plus 10 to all of its saves and all of its allies, so it's actually not too bad. I'm not wearing a single saves item, and if I had my buffs on, most of them would be hovering around 30, with a saves item of like plus 6, that's 36, which is more than enough for any type of content at my level. As far as the skills go, I mentioned this before, you don't need concentration. Right now you're looking at Diplomacy, Intimidate, because I'm a half-orc. If you're not a half-orc, skip this one, take Balance instead. Jump, Perform, Spellcraft, and use Magic Device. I also put points into Tumble, just because I forgot that I was supposed to put points into Balance, but make sure you're taking Balance instead of these other skills like Tumble or Intimidate or Concentration. Now, as far as the feats go, half-orcs, not really half-orcs, sorry, Bards are really limited on what kind of feats they can take because you need to have the meta magic feats Maximize and Quicken, and then you also want to make sure you're taking a lot of the spellcasting feats, specifically Spell Focus and Greater Spell Focus, Evocation, and Enchantment. Now, if you happen to have a past life of Wizard, this would be where instead of taking a Greater Evocation Specialist or Greater Enchantment Focus Specialist, you want to be taking the past life Wizard feat, a little bit better, and also Completionist if you happen to have it, but of course if you don't have those feats, these ones will suffice. I took Mental Toughness once, although I would have wished I could have taken it twice, but with this character, I didn't feel like mana was too much of a stressor. It was mostly that my DCs weren't landing, so that's kind of the bigger focus on that one. So that's pretty much all of my feats. Mental Toughness, plus the 2 Meta Magic feats, plus Evocation, and Enchantment, Spell Focus, and Greater Spell Focus. As far as the spells go, I've said this 100 times before, take the good spells but not the bad spells. Well, this is even more important in Bard, as you keep increasing in your levels, for your 5th level spells, Hold Monster Mass, Greater Heroism, these are pretty much the only 2 spells that you want. All the other 5th level spells are bad. And for your 6th level spells, again, Greater Shout, Auto's Irresistible Dance, everything else pretty much falls into that bad category. However, as a spell singer, you do get access to 2 more beneficial spells, and that's Heal, which is a great spell. It heals a whole bunch of extra health, something that Bards normally wouldn't get, but you get it from the spell singer capstone, as well as Wail of the Banshee. Again, another spell you wouldn't expect Bards to get, but they get it from the spell singer capstone. Now you might think to yourself, it's not a good idea to have Wail of the Banshee because my character can't actually do Necromancy DCs. I get none of that from the tree, so why would I even do this? Well, number one, Wail of the Banshee on here actually drains negative levels to targets, so even if you don't end up killing them, it still drains a whole bunch of health off of the monster. And on top of that, Bard Spell Singers get so many universal DCs, you can actually make Wail of the Banshee work, even on a pure Bard spellcaster focusing on enchantment and evocation spells. Bards are great because they get both evocation and enchantment DCs pretty much the entire time while leveling for free, which means you can spare 1 or 2 items to get that extra necromancy DC. It's not always going to land, but it's going to feel good. As far as the enhancements go, this is kind of the backbone of what I would think would make the character class work well. Ignoring the points in the half-orc tree for the lock bash, you've got everything you really want to get out of Spell Singer. Picking up the Virtuoso and the Maestro of Life and Death here as you're going up every single core. On top of that, you're also grabbing out of the tree Magical Studies for the extra magical training, the extra mana here. You're picking up Sonic Blast because you want that Sonic Blast to deal damage to monsters. This pretty much never stops being useful throughout the entire leveling process. It doesn't stay too useful at level 30. However, it is a spell that you can cast, and it does a reasonable amount of damage. It currently does a little more damage than the old Fireball used to do. And since this character scales up to caster level 10, you can keep scaling it all the way up to caster level 20 with Master Music, a feat you definitely want to take with this build. Keeping the spell-like ability Shout in here is good. I have a few more points extra spent in this tree. You don't have to take the extra 2 points in Arcane Aid here that I took. I usually went with 1 out of 3, but I had nowhere else to put my points, and this seemed alright. If you wanted to have some extra points in here, or if you had any extra points and you wanted to spare them, you could take 2 points out of here, 2 points out of War Chanter, all 6 points I had in Half-Orc, and dump them all into Fade Arc Illusionist, grabbing Greater Color Spray as well, since each core of the Spell Singer tree also gives you a bonus to Illusion DCs, meaning that your character is able to stack Illusion, Enchantment, Evocation, and Necromancy. Now, while this may seem like a difficult task, at level 30, you can get yourself access to the Mage Rights set, which gives both Enchantment, Insightful Enchantment, Illusion, and Insightful Illusion spell focus, making those spells already taking care of themselves. So then all you got to do is figure out how to get Evocation DCs fit into your build, as well as Necromancy focus in your build as well. In War Chanter, we go for 25 points here. I want to pick up Fighting Spirit because it gives you double your Charisma score for your temporary HP from your Inspire Greatness. Inspire Greatness is an ability you get, I believe, at level 9 Bard, and it grants 20 temporary hit points every 10 seconds in an aura. Having it scaling off of my Charisma, and most specifically double in Epics, means if you're playing as a pure Spell Singer, Charisma is your most important stat, and you want to get probably somewhere around 110, which is very doable on a Bard character like this. With 110 Charisma, that's 220 temporary hit points to you and all of your friends, which is reasonably good. You want to make sure you do have that. So 21 points in this tree I'd say is pretty good, 23 possibly for the extra Charisma up here. And then another Swashbuckler tree, I grabbed Fast Movement because it makes you run fast, and running fast feels really good. Now, that's pretty much all I have on this character. As far as how this character is going to perform as you get all the way up into level 30, hitting the level cap, the important thing to remember is that this is not a single target DPS. This is a supportive character. So you will scream through dungeons, literally screaming with your Shout, your Greater Shout dealing damage, Horn of Thunder, walk into a room, mass hold all the monsters, kill everything, move on to the next room, even in Reaper mode, all the way through at level 30. Probably I would say this character would be good for soloing at that level all the way up through Reaper 4, feeling comfortable once you have the gear. However, it is important to note that this character stalls once you hit the final boss. This character has basically no way to deal a lot of single target damage, so to make up for that fact, you can do one of two things. Either go into the Magister, so that way you can get access to the Arcane Storm ability, or whatever it's called, Arcane Torrent, the one that does 2d6s of force damage per level every couple of seconds to people inside a cloud, or alternatively, just go Draconic Incarnation, pick up extra crit multi, and do some additional damage. Fate Singer is usually where people would say they want to be, and honestly, it is pretty good for this character from the extra Sonic vulnerability, assuming you're actually getting some weapon swings in with your actual spells, so that way you can increase the Sonic vulnerability. And if you're playing like that, getting that 50% extra Sonic damage is pretty good, but since you want to scale Evocation, Enchantment, Illusion, and Necromancy DCs, it is quite important to actually have those DCs as high as possible, and Magister just happens to grant +6 to all of them, as well as a clicky for an extra +5. Meaning that being in Magister effectively gives you a +11 to whatever DCs you want when you want it, which makes it pretty dang good, especially for this type of character. Anyways, that's pretty much all I have for you guys. Me Sing Songs, unfortunately, is going to be deleted immediately after posting of this video, so say goodbye to Me Sing Songs as we bring you in the next series, checking out Caster Artificer next, which should be a good time. Hopefully it'll perform either the same or better than Bard, but only time will tell. Anyways, thank you for watching. If you like what you see, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and if you're like, man, this seems like it would be kind of fun, is there any like goofy jokes that I could hear about this character or see about the experiences live? What if you just really want to get some of that feedback as to how the character performed? Well, guess what? You can go to twitch.tv/Strimtom for all of the best, most live content action with this character. So you can see how I build up characters, how they go along, and then be able to see the final product for review here on YouTube. That's all I have. Thank you for watching, and go brush your teeth before you go to bed. Bye-bye.